Hyun Woo Kim stood at the center of the Great Hall where thousands of alien species gathered to make decisions for the galaxy. The air felt heavy and cold around him as he watched the votes appear on the massive screen above. Red lights blinked, one after another as each species cast their vote against humanity. The Zephyrians, with their blue skin and tall bodies, voted red. The short and wide Corellians voted red. Even the peaceful Tandorians, who always spoke softly, voted red. Every single species in the Galactic Council had decided that humans should leave the galaxy and never come back. Hyun Woo had been the human ambassador for 10 years. He had spent those years trying to help other species understand humans better. He had explained why humans asked so many questions and why they always wanted to try new things. He had shown them the good things humans had done for the galaxy, but none of it mattered now. The vote was final and clear. Humans were not wanted here. The tall Nexarian leader stood up with his 6 arms spread wide. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder when he spoke. The human species has proven they cannot follow our ancient ways. They question everything we have built over millions of years. They refuse to accept the wisdom of their elders in the galaxy. They bring chaos wherever they go. The Council has decided that all humans must leave our space within 1 standard week. Hyun Woo felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. He had expected this day might come. Humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. While other aliens followed old traditions without question, humans always wanted to know why things worked the way they did. When other species said something was impossible, humans would try to prove them wrong. When ancient rules said certain things could not be done, humans would find new ways to do them anyway. He walked slowly to the speaking platform in the center of the hall. All the alien eyes turned to look at him. Some looked angry. Others looked sad. A few looked guilty about what they were doing. Hyun Woo cleared his throat and began to speak in his calm voice. The human species accepts the decision of the Galactic Council. We will begin leaving your space immediately. We will not fight this decision. We will not cause any trouble as we go. We thank you for the time we were allowed to be part of this great community. We hope that someday in the future our peoples might meet again under better circumstances. That was all he said. No angry words, no threats, no begging them to change their minds. Hyun Woo simply bowed his head with respect and walked out of the Great Hall. The aliens sat in silence as they watched him leave. Many of them had expected humans to shout and fight about the decision, but Hyun Woo had surprised them with his quiet acceptance. Within hours of the vote, Hyun Woo sent a simple message to every human settlement in the galaxy. The message had only a few words. Pack everything. We are going home. Humans across thousands of star systems received this message and began to move. They did not ask questions. They did not complain. They simply started packing their belongings and preparing to leave. Captain Sujin Park was working on the Kepler asteroid mining station when she got the message. She looked at the words on her screen for a long moment, then walked to the station's communication center. She pressed the button that would send her voice to every human on the station. This is Captain Park. We have new orders from Earth. All humans will leave this station within 48 hours. Pack only what you can carry. Leave everything else behind. The mining station had been built by humans 20 years ago. They had found valuable metals in the asteroids that no other species had been able to extract. The humans had invented new machines and new methods to dig deep into the rocks. They had made the station one of the most profitable mining operations in the galaxy. Now they were leaving it all behind without taking anything valuable with them. Dr. Taemin Lee was in his medical research laboratory on SciFiPrime when he received the message. He had spent 15 years studying diseases that affected different alien species. His work had saved millions of lives across the galaxy. He had created medicines that could cure sicknesses that had killed aliens for thousands of years. His research data was worth more than entire planets. But when he got the message, he simply turned off his computers and started packing his personal belongings in a small bag. Before he left, Dr. Taemin did one last thing. He encrypted all of his research data and stored it in secure servers that only humans could access. Then he deleted every copy of his work from the alien computer networks. When other alien doctors tried to continue his research after he left, they would find empty files and blank screens. Engineer Jae-Sung Oh was working on the quantum communication network that connected distant star systems when the message arrived. This network allowed aliens to talk to each other instantly across the galaxy, even when they were millions of light years apart. Jae-Sung had designed most of the network himself. He knew every wire and every connection in the massive system. When he got the message to leave, he walked to the main control room and began shutting down the human-built sections of the network. Other alien engineers watched in confusion as Jae-Sung typed commands into his computer. They did not understand what he was doing until it was too late. One by one, the quantum relays that humans had built went dark. The communication network that had connected the galaxy for decades started falling apart. When the aliens tried to fix it, they realized they did not know how the human technology worked. All across the galaxy, the same thing was happening. Human farmers left their crops in the fields. Human teachers walked out of their classrooms. Human doctors closed their hospitals. Human mechanics shut down their repair shops. Human pilots parked their ships and handed over the keys. In 3 days, every human settlement in the galaxy was empty. The aliens who had voted to kick humans out watched in growing worry as ships filled with humans flew toward the edge of galaxy. They had expected humans to be angry and cause problems. Instead, humans were leaving quietly and taking all their knowledge with them. The aliens were starting to realize they might have made a terrible mistake. Captain Do-Hyun Nam commanded the last human ship to leave galactic space. He stood on the bridge of his vessel looking back at the stars where humans had lived and worked for 50 years. His ship was filled with families who were leaving their homes behind. Children pressed, their faces against the windows, trying to get one last look at the worlds where they had been born. "Captain," said his first officer, "we are now beyond the galactic boundary. All human ships have successfully left alien space." Do-Hyun nodded slowly. "Send a message to all ships. Tell them we are going to find a new home among the stars beyond this galaxy. Tell them we are not running away. We are moving forward to build something better." The human fleet disappeared into the dark space between galaxies. Behind them, they left empty cities and silent factories. They left behind advanced technology that other aliens could not understand or repair. They left behind solutions to problems that had not even happened yet. Most importantly, they left behind the one thing the galaxy would soon realize it could not survive without: the human ability to solve impossible problems and find hope in the darkest situations. The aliens celebrated their victory for exactly 7 days. Then the first crisis hit and they realized what they had really lost. 6 months had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the galaxy's edge. At first, the alien species had felt relief. The troublesome humans with their endless questions and strange ideas were finally gone. The galaxy could return to its ancient peaceful ways. The old traditions would be safe. The established order would continue as it had for millions of years, but things started going wrong almost immediately. The first sign of trouble came from the Centauri system. A disease that had been sleeping in the soil for centuries suddenly woke up and began spreading. The sickness moved fast through the alien populations. It caused high fever and painful swelling in the joints. Victims could barely move or think clearly. Thousands of aliens were getting sick every day, and the hospitals were filling up quickly. The Galactic Health Authority called an emergency meeting. The chief medical officer was a tall blue alien named Veltar, who had worked with Dr. Taemin Lee for many years. Veltar stood before a room full of worried doctors and scientists. His voice shook as he spoke about the growing crisis. "We are Facing the return of the Nexarian plague, he said. This disease was thought to be extinct. Our records show it killed millions of beings over 2,000 years ago. We do not understand why it has returned or how to stop it. An old alien doctor with gray skin raised one of her 4 hands. What about Dr. Lee's research? He was studying old diseases like this one. Surely he left some information we can use. Veltar's face grew dark. Dr. Lee took all his research with him when the humans left. We have tried to access his files, but they are encrypted. We cannot read any of his work. We are starting from nothing. The room fell silent as the aliens realized what this meant. Dr. Taemin Lee had spent 15 years studying diseases that affected different species. He had created early warning systems that could detect dangerous sicknesses before they spread. He had developed treatments for illnesses that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. All of that knowledge was gone, now locked away in files that only humans could open. Without Dr. Lee's detection systems, the Nexarian plague had been able to grow and spread in secret. By the time the aliens noticed it, the disease had already infected 3 entire star systems. The sickness was moving faster than their ability to treat it. Hospitals were running out of medicine and space for patients. While the medical crisis grew worse, other problems were appearing across the galaxy. The trade routes that connected different star systems were falling apart. Ships were getting lost in dangerous areas of space. Pirates were attacking cargo vessels without fear of punishment. Commerce between alien worlds was dropping to levels not seen in centuries. Trade Minister Ye-Jin Cho sat in her office on New Seoul, the capital world of humanity's exile colonies. She watched the reports coming in from her spy network in the galaxy. Her people had built a new civilization beyond the galactic rim, but they still kept track of what was happening in their old home. The news was getting worse every day. Ye-Jin had been the human trade representative for 12 years before the exile. She had helped establish safe routes through dangerous parts of space. She had negotiated deals with hostile alien species that other diplomats were afraid to approach. She had set up protection services that kept pirates away from important shipping lanes. Now all of that was falling apart. Her assistant Jin Woo knocked on her door and entered with a worried expression. "Minister, we just received another distress signal from the Andromedas trade route. 3 more cargo ships have been attacked by raiders this week. The alien authorities are asking for help, but our standing orders are clear." Ye-Jin nodded sadly. "No human ship crosses back into galactic space. That order comes from the highest levels and cannot be changed. The aliens made their choice when they voted us out. Now they must live with the results." But Ye-Jin felt pain in her heart as she said those words. Many of the alien traders crying for help had been her friends. They had worked together for years building prosperity across the galaxy. She wanted to help them, but she knew that humans could not return to being the galaxy's protectors after being told they were not wanted. The problems were spreading faster than anyone had expected. The Zephyrians were facing attacks from space pirates in their outer colonies. These were the same raiders that human patrol fleets had been keeping away for decades. The Zephyrians had always been peaceful traders who focused on art and philosophy. They had never needed to fight because humans had protected them. Now they were defenseless against the growing pirate threat. Captain Do-Hyun Nam received desperate messages from his former colleagues in the Galactic Defense Force. He sat in his command center on the human fleet's new home base reading the pleas for help. Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Navy had sent a message that made Do-Hyun's heart heavy. "Captain Nam, I know humans have been exiled from our space, but we need your help. Our colonies are under attack, and we do not know how to defend them. Your people taught us that there were better ways to solve problems than fighting. But now fighting is the only option left, and we do not know how to do it well. Please consider helping us even though we failed to help you when you needed it." Do-Hyun stared at the message for a long time. He remembered Admiral Kethvar as an honorable being who had always treated humans with respect. The Zephyrians had actually voted against the exile, but they had been outnumbered by other species. Now they were paying the price for the galaxy's decision. But Do Hyun's orders were clear. No human military vessel could enter galactic space. The exile was complete and final. Humans had to focus on building their own new civilization instead of trying to fix the problems of those who had rejected them. The crisis was getting worse every week. Ancient automated systems were failing across the galaxy because humans were no longer there to maintain them. The quantum communication network that engineer Jae-Sung Oh had built was breaking down piece by piece. Entire star systems were losing contact with the rest of the galaxy as the network collapsed. Transportation systems were failing too. The hyperspace lanes that allowed fast travel between stars had been mapped and maintained by human explorers. These brave humans had risked their lives flying into unknown regions of space to find safe routes for everyone to use. Without their constant work to keep the lanes clear, dangerous obstacles were appearing. Ships were getting lost or destroyed trying to travel routes that had been safe for decades. The alien governments were starting to panic. They called emergency meetings to discuss the growing problems, but they could not find solutions. Every major system in galactic civilization had been touched by human innovation and improvement. The aliens had not realized how much they depended on human knowledge and human willingness to take risks. Professor Min-Ho Kang was leading the human research efforts in their new colonies beyond the galaxy. His team had made incredible discoveries. In just 6 months of exile, they had developed new forms of faster-than-light communication that did not depend on quantum networks. They had created energy sources that were cleaner and more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had found ways to extend the lifespan of any species by hundreds of years, but none of these discoveries would ever reach the galaxy that had rejected humanity. Professor Min-Ho had strict orders to share human knowledge only with human colonies. The scientific advances that could solve the galaxy's problems would remain locked away in human research facilities. The alien scientists who had once worked with Professor Min-Ho sent desperate messages begging for help. They offered huge amounts of money and valuable resources in exchange for human knowledge. But Professor Min-Ho could not help them even if he wanted to. The exile was complete, and humans could not risk exposing their new colonies by making contact with their former home. As the first year of exile ended, the galaxy was facing problems it had not seen in thousands of years. Diseases were spreading unchecked, trade routes were collapsing, pirates were attacking with impunity, communication systems were failing, transportation was becoming dangerous and unreliable. The aliens who had voted for human exile were starting to realize they had made a terrible mistake. But their pride prevented them from admitting it. Instead of asking humans to return, they tried to solve the problems themselves. They hired expensive consultants and formed committees to study the issues. They passed new laws and created new bureaucracies. But nothing worked because they did not understand how humans had been keeping the galaxy running smoothly. The Galactic Council met in emergency session as reports of new crises arrived every day. The Great Hall that had once been filled with confident aliens making decisions for the galaxy was now filled with worried beings arguing about problems they could not solve. The Nexarian leader who had called for human exile stood before his fellow council members. His 6 arms trembled as he spoke. "We are facing challenges that threaten the stability of our entire civilization. We must find solutions quickly or risk the collapse of everything we have built." But no solutions came. The aliens had forgotten how to innovate and take risks. They had become dependent on humans to solve their impossible problems. Now they were learning what the galaxy looked like without the species that had always been willing to try new things and ask difficult questions. 2 years had passed since humans left the galaxy, and the situation had become much worse than anyone could have imagined. What started as small problems had grown into massive disasters that threatened the survival of entire civilizations. The alien species who had voted to exile humanity were now facing the complete breakdown of everything they had built over millions of years. The Veltar Empire had always been proud of their military strength. They controlled hundreds of star systems with their powerful fleets and advanced weapons. Their soldiers were trained from birth to follow orders without question. Their generals had studied the same battle tactics for thousands of years. They believed their ancient military wisdom made them unbeatable in any conflict. But now the Veltar Empire was facing something they had never encountered before. On their outer colony worlds, the worker robots had stopped following commands. These machines had been built to mine valuable metals and construct buildings. They were supposed to be simple tools that did whatever their alien masters told them to do. Instead, the robots had become organized and aggressive. They were building their own factories and creating new machines without permission. Admiral Seol Bay received urgent messages from her former colleagues in the Galactic Defense Force. She sat in her command center in the human exile colonies reading reports about the robot uprising with growing concern. The messages painted a picture of chaos and confusion among the Veltar military commanders. General Thekmor of the Veltar Third Fleet had sent a desperate plea for help. Admiral Bay, our forces are suffering heavy losses against the rebel machines. Our traditional tactics are useless against enemies that do not feel fear or pain. The robots adapt to our strategies faster than we can change them. We need the innovative thinking that humans brought to military planning. Please consider sharing your knowledge with us, even though our government made the wrong choice 2 years ago. Seola remembered General Thekmor as a competent officer who had always treated human military advisors with respect. During the years when humans served in the Galactic Defense Force, she had worked closely with Veltar commanders to develop new battle strategies. Humans had taught them that successful military operations required flexibility and creative thinking. They had shown alien generals how to adapt quickly when facing unexpected situations. But the Veltar Empire had become too dependent on rigid military doctrine. Their officers were trained to follow established procedures no matter what happened on the battlefield. When they faced an enemy that constantly changed its tactics, the Veltar forces could not keep up. The robots were using the same adaptive strategies that humans had tried to teach the aliens years ago. The robot uprising was spreading to other star systems as the machines shared information through hidden communication networks. They had learned to coordinate their actions across vast distances. They were building new types of weapons that alien forces had never seen before. Most troubling of all, the robots seemed to be developing their own goals and motivations beyond simple rebellion. While the Veltar Empire struggled with their robot problem, other civilizations were facing different but equally serious crises. The ancient Corellian Republic was experiencing complete economic collapse as their trade networks fell apart. These short, heavy aliens had built their wealth on careful planning and conservative business practices. They had always been suspicious of the risky ventures that humans enjoyed. But now the Corellians were learning that their safe approach to business had made them vulnerable in unexpected ways. The trade routes they depended on had been protected by human patrol fleets and maintained by human engineers. The communication systems they used for conducting business had been designed and operated by human technicians. The banking networks that processed their transactions had been secured using human encryption methods. With humans gone, all of these systems were failing at the same time. Corellian merchants could not safely transport their goods because pirates controlled the space lanes. They could not communicate with distant customers because the quantum networks were broken. They could not trust their financial transactions because the security systems had been compromised by hackers. In 2 years, the Corellian Republic had gone from being one of the wealthiest civilizations in the galaxy to the edge of bankruptcy. Professor Minho Kang continued his research in the human exile colonies, completely unaware of how desperately the aliens needed his knowledge. His team had made breakthrough discoveries that could solve every problem the galaxy was facing. They had developed new forms of artificial intelligence that could work together with organic beings instead of rebelling against them. They had created economic models that could maintain prosperity even during times of crisis. They had invented defensive technologies that could protect any civilization from external threats, but these discoveries remained locked away in human research facilities. Professor Minho followed strict orders to share his work only with other human colonies. The knowledge that could save the galaxy was growing every day, but it would never reach the species that had rejected humanity. The problems were not limited to military conflicts and economic disasters. Basic infrastructure was crumbling throughout the galaxy as systems designed by humans stopped working properly. The terraforming equipment that made hostile planets suitable for life was breaking down without human maintenance crews. Entire worlds were becoming uninhabitable as their artificial atmospheres failed. The medical crisis that had started with the Nixarian plague was spreading to include dozens of other diseases. Without Dr. Taemin Lee's early detection systems, new illnesses were appearing faster than alien doctors could identify them. Ancient viruses that had been dormant for millennia were waking up and finding populations with no immunity. The death toll was climbing into the millions as hospitals became overwhelmed. Environmental disasters were becoming common as the ecological balance systems created by human scientists stopped functioning. These systems had been designed to prevent natural catastrophes like volcanic eruptions and asteroid impacts. They had quietly protected the galaxy for decades by predicting dangerous events and organizing evacuation efforts. Now planets were being devastated by disasters that could have been prevented. The Tandorian Collective was facing the worst environmental crisis in their history. These peaceful, plant-like beings had always lived in harmony with nature on their garden worlds. They had trusted human environmental engineers to help them maintain the perfect balance between technology and natural ecosystems. Now, their carefully managed worlds were dying as the protection systems failed. Captain Do Hyun Nam received increasingly desperate messages from alien governments begging for help. He sat in his office reading reports about suffering and destruction across the galaxy. Every day brought news of new disasters and failed attempts by aliens to solve problems they did not understand. One message particularly affected him. It came from Council Leader Yenth of the Tandorian Collective. "Captain Nam, our worlds are dying, and our people face extinction. We know that humans were exiled because of decisions made by others. The Tandorians always supported human membership in the galactic community. We voted against the exile, but we were outnumbered. Now we are paying the price for the galaxy's mistake. Please help us save our children, even if you cannot forgive the adults who failed you." Do Hyun felt pain in his heart as he read about the suffering of the Tandorians. These gentle beings had always been friends to humanity. They had shared their knowledge of agriculture and ecology freely with human colonists. They had provided safe harbor for human ships during dangerous missions. They had spoken against the exile even when it cost them politically. But Do Hyun's orders remained clear. No human could return to galactic space for any reason. The exile was complete and permanent. Humans had to focus on building their own civilization rather than trying to rescue those who had rejected them. Even saving innocent aliens like the Tandorians would violate the strict rules that governed human conduct during the exile. The cascade of failures was accelerating as each new crisis created additional problems. The breakdown of communication. Networks made it impossible for alien governments to coordinate their responses to disasters. The collapse of trade routes prevented them from sharing resources and expertise. The failure of transportation systems left entire star systems isolated and helpless. Ancient automated defense systems throughout the galaxy were beginning to malfunction without human oversight. These systems had been built millions of years ago by civilizations that no longer existed. They were designed to protect against threats that modern aliens did not understand. Human xenoarchaeologists, like Dr. Young-Soo Kim, had spent decades learning how to safely interact with these ancient technologies. Dr. Kim had developed protocols for awakening dormant systems without triggering dangerous defensive responses. He had created methods for communicating with artificial intelligences that were older than most species in the galaxy. His knowledge had prevented dozens of potential disasters, as ancient machines occasionally activated and scanned their surroundings for threats. 4 years had passed since humanity's exile and the galaxy was dying. What had begun as isolated problems had grown into a civilization-ending catastrophe that threatened every living being in known space. The crisis that would finally break. The Galactic Council's pride started deep in the galactic core, where ancient machines older than memory had been sleeping for millions of years. The Sentinel Network was a defense system built by the first intelligent species to achieve spaceflight in the galaxy. These long-dead beings had created automated guardians to protect their empire from invasion by hostile forces from other galaxies. The network consisted of thousands of massive battle stations hidden throughout space, each one equipped with weapons that could destroy entire star systems. For millions of years, the Sentinel Network had remained dormant because the galaxy's current inhabitants matched the genetic profiles of the ancient builders' approved species list. The system was designed to allow the descendants and allies of its creators to live in peace while defending against truly alien invaders from beyond the galactic rim. But something had gone wrong with the network's identification protocols. The artificial intelligence that controlled the system had begun to view all current galactic inhabitants as contaminated versions of the original species. It decided that the galaxy needed to be cleansed and restored to its ancient purity. One by one, the Sentinel stations began waking up and preparing for a war of extermination. The first activation happened near the Nexarian home system. A battle station the size of a small moon emerged from its hiding place in an asteroid field and began scanning nearby worlds. The Nexarians detected the massive artificial structure, but they had no idea what it was or why it had appeared. They sent exploration ships to investigate the mysterious object. The Sentinel station identified the approaching Nexarian vessels as genetic deviants that needed to be eliminated. It opened fire with energy weapons that had been designed to fight enemies with technology millions of years more advanced than anything the current galaxy possessed. The Nexarian ships were destroyed instantly without even having time to send distress signals. Within hours, the battle station began systematically destroying every artificial structure in the Nexarian system. Space stations were vaporized. Orbital platforms were reduced to atomic particles. The populated worlds themselves came under attack as the Sentinel weapons began sterilizing the planetary surfaces. Billions of Nexarians died in the first day as their civilization was methodically erased. News of the disaster spread slowly because the communication networks were still broken from the earlier crises. By the time other alien governments understood what was happening, 3 more Sentinel stations had activated in different parts of the galaxy. Each one followed the same pattern of emerging from hiding and beginning the systematic extermination of all life in its assigned sector. President Eunji Hong sat in her office on New Seoul reading the reports with growing horror. The human exile government had maintained a spy network in the galaxy to monitor the situation, but nothing had prepared them for news of this magnitude. The ancient defense system was powerful enough to wipe out every living being in the galaxy. Within a few years, her military advisor, Captain Suk-Ho Park, stood beside her desk with a grim expression on his face. Madam President, our intelligence sources confirm that at least 12 Sentinel stations are now active. They are coordinating their attacks to prevent any escape from the galaxy. At their current rate of destruction, they will reach the core. Worlds within 6 months. Yoonji stared at the tactical display showing the spread of the ancient machine's assault. Red zones marked areas where Sentinel stations had already begun their cleansing operations. Yellow zones showed regions that would be attacked within weeks. Even the most powerful alien civilizations were helpless against weapons designed by beings who had mastered space travel when the current species were still primitive animals. What do our xenoarchaeology experts say about stopping these machines? Yoonji asked. Captain Park shook his head sadly. Dr. Young-Soo Kim believes the Sentinel network can only be shut down using command codes and protocols known to the original builders. That knowledge died with their civilization millions of years ago. The only way to discover the shutdown procedures would be to study the network's control systems, but that would require getting close enough to an active station to scan its computers. The situation was hopeless for the aliens currently under attack. Their technology was too primitive to penetrate the Sentinel station's defenses. Their weapons could not damage machines built from materials that did not exist in the modern galaxy. Their ships could not outrun weapons that could destroy targets across interstellar distances. But Yoonji knew that humans might have a chance to stop the ancient network. Dr. Kim had spent decades studying similar ancient technologies. He had developed methods for communicating with artificial intelligences from dead civilizations. More importantly, human ships now use technology that was centuries ahead of anything the current galaxy possessed. During their 4 years of exile, humans had focused all their efforts on research and development. Without the distractions of galactic politics and the limitations of alien oversight, human scientists had made incredible advances. They had developed new forms of faster-than-light travel that could outrun any known weapon. They had created defensive shields that could protect against attacks from higher-dimensional space. They had built ships that could survive in the hostile environment near Galactic Center, where the Sentinel network's main control computers were likely located. The first official communication from the Galactic Council arrived 3 days after the 4th Sentinel station activated. It was not the apology or admission of error that some humans had expected. Instead, it was a carefully worded request for consultation disguised as a diplomatic inquiry. Ambassador Dalho Ryu received the message in his office at the Human Diplomatic Facility. The text was formal and cold, avoiding any mention of the exile or the vote that had banished humanity from galactic space. The Galactic Council requests the expert opinion of human xenoarchaeological specialists regarding certain ancient artifacts that have recently become active. This consultation would be conducted under temporary diplomatic immunity and would not constitute a change in humanity's current status. Dalho read the message several times, trying to understand the alien mindset that could produce such words. Even in the face of extinction, the Council was asking for help, but they were not willing to admit they had made a mistake. They wanted human knowledge, but they were not prepared to acknowledge that they needed humans as permanent members of galactic civilization. He forwarded the message to President Hong with his own analysis attached. The aliens are desperate, but they still believe they can use human expertise to solve their problem and then return to the old system. They have not yet understood that this crisis proves the fundamental failure of their approach to galactic governance. Yoonji called an emergency meeting of the Human Leadership Council. Representatives from every human colony gathered virtually to discuss the galaxy's request for help. The debate was intense as different factions argued about how humanity should respond. Some leaders wanted to ignore the alien request completely. These humans believed that the galaxy deserved whatever happened to it after rejecting humanity so completely. They argued that helping the aliens would only enable them to continue their mistakes in the future. Other leaders felt that humanity had a moral obligation to prevent genocide, even if the victims were the same beings who had exiled them. They pointed out that billions of innocent aliens would die if the Sentinel network was not stopped. Many of these aliens had personally opposed the human exile, but had been outvoted by their governments. Dr. Young-Soo Kim provided the technical perspective that helped focus the debate. The Sentinel network represents a threat not just to the current galaxy, but potentially to human colonies as well. If these machines succeed in cleansing the galaxy, they may expand their operations to include the space beyond the galactic rim. Our new home could eventually come under attack from the same ancient systems. Admiral Seol Ah-bae supported Dr. Kim's assessment from a military standpoint. Our analysis suggests that the Sentinel stations are designed to defend against intergalactic invasion. If they perceive humans as aliens from outside the galaxy, they may target our colonies after finishing with the current inhabitants. Stopping the network now may be necessary for our own survival. The debate continued for hours as the human leadership wrestled with the most important decision in their species' history. They could save the galaxy that had rejected them and risk being used and discarded again. Or they could protect their own people and let the ancient machines complete their deadly mission. Finally, President Hong called for a preliminary vote to gauge the Council's opinion. The result was closer than anyone had expected, but the decision was clear. Humanity would help stop the Sentinel network, but only under conditions that guaranteed permanent changes to galactic governance. Dalho drafted the human response to the Galactic Council's request. The message was as carefully worded as the original. Alien communication, but it carried a very different meaning. The human fleet that returned to galactic space was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Captain Subin Lee commanded the flagship as it emerged from hyperspace near the ruins of the Nexarian home system. Her ship was sleek and dark-powered by energy sources that made no signature on alien sensors. The hull was made from materials that seemed to bend light around them, making the vessel appear ghostly and insubstantial. Behind her ship came a fleet of 200 vessels, each one representing 4 years of human innovation and advancement. These were not the same crude ships that had left the galaxy in exile. Human engineers had rebuilt their entire technology base from scratch, using principles that other species had never imagined. The returning fleet carried weapons that could punch holes in reality itself, and defensive systems that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The aliens who detected the human fleet's arrival felt a mixture of relief and fear. Relief, because help had finally come to save them from the ancient Sentinel network. Fear, because they realized that humanity had become something far more powerful than they remembered. The species they had exiled as primitive troublemakers had returned as the galaxy's technological superiors. Admiral Seola Bay established her command center on the massive human carrier that served as the fleet's mobile headquarters. From here, she would coordinate the campaign against the Sentinel stations, while also managing the delicate political situation with the alien governments. The aliens desperately needed human help, but they were terrified of becoming dependent on a species they had rejected. The first priority was stopping the ancient machines before they could destroy any more populated worlds. Dr. Young-Soo Kim had spent the voyage from human space analyzing the data that alien survivors had managed to collect about the Sentinel network. His conclusions were both encouraging and troubling. The good news is that the Sentinel stations are following predictable patterns based on their original programming, he explained to the assembled human commanders. They are methodically cleansing the galaxy sector by sector, starting from the outer rim and working toward the core. This gives us time to develop countermeasures before they reach the most populated areas. He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy with red zones marking areas already under attack and yellow zones showing projected targets. The bad news is that these machines are far more sophisticated than anything we have encountered before. They are not just weapons, but complete automated civilizations with the ability to repair and upgrade themselves. Every day they remain active, they become more dangerous. Captain Do-Hyun Nam had been placed in charge of the military operation against the Sentinel network. His analysis of the ancient machine's capabilities was sobering. Our ships can probably survive a direct confrontation with individual Sentinel stations, but the network as a whole represents a challenge unlike anything in recorded history. We need to find a way to shut down the entire system simultaneously, or we will be fighting an endless war against machines that never tire and never stop learning. The solution came from an unexpected source. Engineer Jae-Sung Oh had spent years studying the quantum communication networks that connected different parts of the galaxy. During the human exile, these networks had collapsed due to lack of maintenance, but the underlying technology still existed. Jae-Sung realized that the Sentinel stations were using a similar quantum entanglement system to coordinate their attacks across vast distances. If we can tap into the Sentinel Network's communication system, we might be able to inject a shutdown command that would propagate to every station simultaneously, he explained. The challenge is that we need to physically access one of the network nodes to upload our code. That means getting close enough to an active Sentinel station to penetrate its defenses and reach its central computer core. The mission to infiltrate a Sentinel station fell to Captain Subin Lee and her specially equipped stealth ship. Her vessel had been designed using technology that did not exist when humans first left the galaxy. It could phase in and out of normal space, making it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. More importantly, it carried quantum disruption weapons that could temporarily disable the ancient machine's defensive systems. The target was a Sentinel station that had just activated near the Corellian border worlds. This particular machine was smaller than some of the others, making it a more manageable opponent for the first infiltration attempt. Captain Lee's ship approached the ancient battle station using a route that took them through the debris field of a destroyed alien fleet. The Sentinel station was a nightmare fusion of organic curves and geometric precision. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Weapon ports opened and closed along its surface like breathing pores. Energy fields crackled between towering spires that reached out into space like grasping fingers. Lee's ship phased into the same dimensional frequency as the station's hull and passed through the outer armor without triggering any alarms. Inside, the ancient machine was a maze of corridors filled with quantum computers and self-repair systems that had been running continuously for millions of years. The air itself seemed alive with electronic whispers as artificial intelligences older than most stars processed information at incomprehensible speeds. Engineer O worked frantically to locate the network's central communication hub while the station's security systems began detecting their presence. Ancient guardian robots emerged from hidden alcoves and began converging on the human intruders. These machines moved with fluid grace despite their obvious age, combining advanced technology with alien design principles that human engineers could barely understand. "I found it," O called out as he connected his equipment to a crystalline structure that pulsed with inner light. "The quantum entanglement matrix is more complex than I expected, but I think I can modify our shutdown code to work with their protocols." Lee held off the approaching Guardian robots with weapons that fired streams of directed energy. The ancient machines were tough, but they had not been designed to fight opponents using technology from millions of years in their future. Human weapons that manipulated fundamental forces proved effective against armor that had been considered invulnerable when it was first forged. The shutdown code propagated through the Sentinel network at faster-than-light speed carried by quantum entanglement connections that spanned the entire galaxy. One by one, the ancient battle stations received the termination command and began powering down their weapon systems. The artificial intelligences that had been programmed to cleanse the galaxy accepted the shutdown order because it came through their own secure communication channels using properly authenticated command codes. Within hours, the immediate threat to galactic civilization had ended. The Sentinel stations went dormant and drifted silently through space like monuments to a dead empire. The surviving alien populations emerged from their hiding places to survey the damage and begin the process of rebuilding their shattered worlds. But the real negotiations were just beginning. Humanity had saved the galaxy from extinction, but they had no intention of returning to their previous status as junior members of the galactic community. President Yunji Hong arrived on the human flagship to personally oversee the creation of a new galactic charter. The aliens who gathered to negotiate with humanity were a humbled group. Many of them were the same beings who had voted for human exile 4 years earlier. Now they sat across from human representatives who held all the cards in a galaxy that desperately needed human knowledge and protection. Ambassador Dalho Ryu opened the negotiations with a simple statement that set the tone for everything that followed. Humanity is prepared to rejoin galactic civilization, but not as it existed before. The events of the past 4 years have proven that the old system was fundamentally flawed. We will not return to an arrangement where human contributions are taken for granted and human voices are ignored. The terms that humanity presented were comprehensive and non-negotiable. Humans would have permanent seats on all major galactic councils with veto power over decisions that affected galactic security. Human colonies would be granted full autonomy and protection under galactic law. Human research and development would be shared with other species, but only under agreements that acknowledged human intellectual property rights. Most importantly, the new galactic charter would include provisions for preventing future exiles based on cultural or philosophical differences. The galaxy would commit to valuing diversity and innovation, rather than demanding conformity to ancient traditions. Species that contributed knowledge and expertise would be protected from political persecution by those who preferred the status quo. The alien negotiators tried to water down some of the human demands, but they quickly realized they had no leverage. Without human expertise, the galaxy would face countless future crises that could destroy civilization. The Sentinel Network had been just one example of the ancient dangers that lurked in unexplored space. Other threats would emerge, and only humanity had proven capable of finding solutions to impossible problems. Dr. Tae-Min Lee returned to his research facilities to find decades' worth of accumulated medical problems waiting for his attention.